How to retire by the ages of 25 to 30 in America. It's not a joke. It's not a sales pitch. It's just simple mathematics, a little philosophy, understanding a few things. By the way, Freedom Fail, like, subscribe. Let's get into it. Okay, first and foremost, luxury is what costs a lot. Life doesn't really cost that much at all. Life didn't really go up that much even with inflation, but luxury went up vastly. And it's the luxury of having everything provided for you from other people that generally costs the most. And so if you make a huge amount of money, let's say you're making $100,000, but you're spending 105 every year because of your luxury lifestyle, and you do things on credit. So maybe you are making some progress towards being debt free, but you're doing it so slowly that you're going to give up, like, say, 20 to 30 years to pay off your house. And maybe at some point, if you have a low enough interest rate on your house, that'll work out. But I think that's a monolithic waste of your life and time. And it's likely you'll probably be divorced and lose all of it long before you ever got to the finish line anyways. So what's the technique that I find will actually allow you to get somewhere? Well, minimalism, number one. Because the less it takes you to live, the better off you are. And so if you make $100,000, but your expenses per year are only about $5,000, you've got, how much money left over. So, you live in a state that has no state income tax, like, say, Washington, Tennessee, Florida, Nevada. There's all these beautiful states out there that don't take state income tax. So instead of paying, $6,000 to $7,000, or hell, I think California is 11% income. So $11,000 for the pleasure of working in this state. For being a contributing part of that state, you get to pay this extra money. So if you can avoid paying those taxes, there's something right there. And then what about those expenses I was talking about? Okay, let's go over that. When I'm out doing van life, for instance, and it's a great example of how life doesn't really cost that much. My old 1988 van out there cost, $25 a month for insurance. And I've got solar panels on it, got rocket boxes, bike rack on the front. I got a camp kitchen I've built with an oven, Camp Chef oven, barbecue built onto the back. It's fucking pimp, dude. I've got a refrigerator, I've got TV, just set up the airwave antenna, pick up all that free TV. I'm living good when I'm out in the middle of nowhere, but if you talk to a lot of people, they'll be like, it's a van. I'm like, well, guess what? My bills are almost nothing. So what are we talking about out on the road? Let's see, $25 for insurance, maybe $15 for laundry. I've got a simple phone plan, 1 gig of data, unlimited everything else for $10 a month. You could up that whichever way you want to go, more data, more plan, depending on how lifestyle. And a little bit of food. I'll give you a few pro tips on how to make it even cheaper on the van life at the end. But so what are we talking, 50 to $100 in food? So we're talking, $150 to $200 a month. Wow. So under $2,500 a month to get by throughout the year. And once again, I'll tell you a pro tip how to make that all free near the end. But let's just go up to 5,000, buying a few video games here and there and whatnot. Remember, buy them used. Let somebody else pay the full price. You get it at a discount. But 5,000 a year is not a massive amount of money. It's like you could work 1 or 2 months, maybe a few months, maybe work at a resort and cover that. So what about a real job? Quote unquote real job, And what I mean by real job is a job that pays enough to where you're actually getting somewhere. Now, a lot of times the problem with a quote unquote real job is it's in the city, where if you're making decent money, you're also losing most of that to your expenses. For instance, you live in a city and it's about $2,000 a month for rent or more, depending on what city you're in. And then you got your, water, electric, all this other crap. So 2,000 maybe turns into 2,500. Depending on, let's just say, I don't know. Let me put it like this. Once it gets cold, I'm gone. Like I drive to where it's warm. So I don't know what it costs to heat a house in the cold climates. $200-$300 a month with electric. I would use wood if it was me, but then do you have a wood stove? A lot of times rentals don't. But so you're paying out, this amount, and people say, well, I live out in the county. It's only $1,000 a month or whatever. Okay, but then you have to drive into the city to make the money, or do you have to drive? Like your commute is literally you paying more for rent. I know you think you're saving money on rent, but if you have to drive an hour each way because traffic's a bitch like that, Just add that up. That's how much you didn't make that day. You gave up 2 more hours of your life, or at least an hour, and that's how much more your rent cost. So you think you're saving, but generally, if you take 2 hours, let's say you're making $25 an hour. I can make driving truck the way I do. I can make around $50 per hour times 70 hours a week. Because I believe in either go big or go home when it comes to making money. But basically, $25 an hour times, two, so $50 times how many days you work that month. And there's how much more your rent costs because of commuting. And then, of course, you're pissing away the best miles of your vehicle. Just going to work and back. Boy, that sounds like a great investment of your life and time. So eventually you're going to have to buy another car. Newer vehicle is going to cost more, plus the insurance is going to cost more. Yeah. Basically, the basic normal way of living, housing, cars, and all this crap, job that hopefully pays enough, but generally they don't. Because let me tell you the real truth about most places. They pay you what they think you need to get by. And the reason they do that is because their attitude is just like, well, the cost of living in this area. I've had trucking companies tell me this over the years. Well, the cost of living in East Idaho is really cheap. And I'm like, okay, so you're not moving freight from those high dollar paying areas on the East Coast? Like you're down in, say, Georgia or something like it's not kind of the East, but you know what I mean, the Southeast. And you're bringing it all the way over here. You're not doing those $13,000 to $16,000 loads, depending on, like, there's some really high dollar loads out there. Oh, they're doing them. They just want to try to convince you that they don't have to pay you as much. This is why I say be mobile. Now, this is where we come back to the van life thing and understanding that if I can get my bills out on the road down to like $200 a month, or if I do that in a truck, for instance, driving OTR, or let's say you want to stay somewhat local, so get a van, get a Sprinter van. I mean, let's say you're a tradesman. You could take a Sprinter van, build a bed in the back, get like one of those diesel heaters. They say you got, get a little tank, one of those diesel bunk heaters, put solar panels all over the top of that vehicle. And you'd have all the power you need to power all your battery powered tools, all the other crap, maybe even have a little thing on the back for a small generator if you ever need to run something high powered like a compressor or something. I mean, hell, they have battery-powered nail guns these days. They've been around for a while, but I'm just impressed of how much things have improved in construction. You could have the ultimate rig, and then you're not paying in that city that rent. You're not wasting your time commuting. When you get off work, you just go to the gym, catch a shower, maybe do a little workout, hit the sauna, and then you go park somewhere. If your boss is really cool, he's like, yeah, whatever. I mean, you being here is like having a night watchman, And so basically, you're not spending the money. And this is the same thing with me driving truck, because I do that super efficient lifestyle is kind of what I call the immigrant technique. You see these people, they come from all over the world, whether it's India, Africa, some parts of the Asian countries, Latinos from all over. They come here and they're not spending their money. They're not buying. I mean, some of them, they dress pretty fly, let's be honest. But a lot of them, they're, other than their clothes, what is it? The same expenses I've been telling you about, where you're like under $200 a month. And if you're making anywhere from 80 to 100K or more, because once you got like 2 years of experience in trucking, you can go anywhere and make real serious money. If you're bringing home, let's say 100K, and the government takes their 10,000 or so, and then you have ways to deduct to where, you're investing in your retirement, so you're paying less taxes there. You take a state that has no state income tax, and basically like Wyoming, Washington, Tennessee, Florida, Nevada, there's probably some others. And you work out of those states, then you're not paying like that 6,000 to 11,000. I think like it was like 11% in California, if I remember right. Yeah, I wonder why people are leaving. They're just like, wait a minute, I can live in a state that doesn't charge me 11,000 a year per 100,000 and doesn't have poop on the streets and junkies, dying everywhere. I think I'll move. That's part of the reason there's such a huge thing going on in these Rocky Mountain states. But point of it is that if you have like less taxes and then a company that has profit sharing or a 401k, so you're having some of your money deducted and then invested, and you're only paying the government 10, and basically that's hopefully being offset majority by what's being invested by your company. And then basically you're not paying the state income taxes. You still probably have 80K a year to dick around with, or more, maybe 90, depending on how much you made. Well, 5,000 a year to get by out of 80, let's say. So you have 75K every year to invest. And that's not including the investment you already did. Now, let's say you go and put it in the S&P or the index. You get 200,000. I would recommend putting in more in the early game of your life, as young as possible. If you could be 14 years old and making money and investing, put it in there, because every dollar, if you're hitting 8 to 10% over the long haul, add that up. And it does. I know it doesn't seem like much, but let me tell you what most people do. They buy a place, they buy a car, and they're paying compound interest. Wouldn't you rather be on the other end of that receiving end? And so, back to the whole like 25 to 30 thing. If you can get that CDL at 18 and you're driving local, I mean, in local, like for instance, in Texas, intrastate, what is it, like damn near 1,000 miles on the I-10? If you can get some job like that, and by the way, Texas is another state that doesn't have state income tax, and you get 3 years of experience driving, and then you can go OTR at 21, which, by the way, I want to tell you, I think it is a crime that as a young person, you can't drive at 16. I know a lot of truckers would be pissed for me here saying it's like 16. You can drive a vehicle. You can drive a farm vehicle at, I think, 14, but you can't drive OTR when you're 18. You're old enough to sign loans and all that crap, and you're old enough to die in a war if they draft you. But you're not responsible enough to friggin' drive over a state line. I mean, come on. And I think a lot of that's just to get people to go to college or join the military. I'm being honest. I think a lot of the way they set up, because trucking is really that good of a deal to where you could basically be retired at a young age. But if you're bringing home, once again, early game, first years, you're probably making 60 to 70. And then, by the second year, you're probably making 80 to 90, maybe 100,000. You get into that good company and you're making that money, and then you're investing. So what, 75,000 plus the investment you're already doing. So 80K a year times 3 years. What are we talking? 240,000 with the interest you've probably made. Let's just say there's 250 there. So 3 years, you've got your retirement figured out. You're what? Let's say you did some of this when you're 18 to 21. So let's say you're 22 and you've already got your retirement completely figured out. Well, what? Let's work another few years, go find yourself a cheap piece of land, big piece of land, build yourself a tiny home on the corner of it, leave the prime lot if you ever decide to have a family. You're not even 25, 26, and you already are set for life. You get it? It's not that complicated. It's really just a matter of stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. Stop trying, and that's really an old school saying, but look all the crap you see people buying. And you know what? It does take some mental discipline, and they certainly don't teach you that in schools. They teach you all this inclusion crap, and obviously your country is garbage because you're America, socialism good. They don't really say it like that, but they certainly don't show you how to really make this work out for you. They basically show you a system where you're going to get most of the school system, in my opinion, is designed just to get you to go to school, because teachers are usually people who got a degree, where like those who can't teach, those who can't get a good degree, can't figure it out, are generally teachers. And here's what I guess really pisses me off about it. If you can teach your kids at home, homeschooling, for $500 to $1,500 a year, now let's say that $19,500 per year per student back where I grew up, why shouldn't you, as the home educator, get that 18 grand? Why the hell should you have to pay for a bullshit pension system and a failing school system that gave your kids an education? I'm like, here's another thing. If your kids were educated at home, let's say they pass 2 grades a year or 3 grades a year, and they're highly more advanced. Like they get into computers or they get into the trades, and they're 10 years old and they're already good at coding, or they're already learning a trade. And so by the age of 14, they are set. Is that what we see in, with the public system? Fuck no. We see a large amount of money wasted, and then these people tell you to go to the university and pay out, anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 that you can't really afford. Oh, you can take out student loans, No, it's a fucking racket. Now, And then the housing thing, that's the same thing as well. How much money are you giving up year after year to pay for a mortgage, have a place and all this thing, keep up the Joneses? We got a green Scots lawn and all this crap. And I get it. What I'm suggesting to people, I've lived a one hell of a wild life. Most people could not handle this. Most people are a copy, a pattern of what their parents were, with minor adjustments through fashion and whatnot. I mean, we've advanced through technology. A handful of scientists have made our lives vastly better than we could ever imagine. But for the most part, if not for a handful of scientists and innovations, we would be no better than we were in the dark ages, where your father was a farmer, you're going to be a farmer, you're a serf, your multiple generations were serfs. But we haven't lost that mentality, in the same way with religion and all the other crap, where it's like we may get away from some things, like when it comes to religion, but we still have the same type of line of thinking. We're follow the leader, and if that leader goes right off the cliff, we just think that's what we fucking do, like lemmings. It doesn't have to be that way. Now, I said earlier I'd tell you a few pro tips, and I am sometimes a shameless bastard, despite all I know about making money and all that crap. I've bummed change. I've went to food banks. One of my favorite signs was "Dog loves burgers." If you're ever broke, no gas, go to a truck stop. If you have a cute dog, I own a corgi. Just sit there with that sign, holding the sign that says gas, and I swear to God, I can't name a number of times I've had a full tank within under 20 minutes. And you know what? I generally don't empty the tank completely, because I'd rather have a stone soup mentality where a few people put in $30 or $40. Like, I had one lady, she put in like $100. It was like $90, but it was just like, she was like a cool old hippie lady, man. And having the sign that says "Dog loves burgers." I remember one time I was sitting there, and it was like an hour or two. I was just casually bumming, and I had like $75 worth of money, and basically probably $50 worth of McDonald's, because that sign was really working. And my dog was eating a lot of McChickens. I fucking love McChickens. But basically, and then a guy came up and he filled our tanks. I have 2 tanks on my van, so I think he put in like $50 or so. And for me, just sitting there. And so, getting back to it, like, if living poor temporarily gets you to the point where you can basically, get some benefits from the government, and that helps you get to where you don't, look, they're going to take your money regardless how you do it. So you might as well get something back. But I'm telling you, this is a wonderful country. It's a great place to be. And I don't know. You want to retire young, it's possible. People, okay, I know some of you are probably thinking, I probably didn't bring this up. Kids. Well, what if I have kids? Kids will slow you down. There's no getting around about that. But are you willing to maybe live with your parents, live in a trailer in their backyard or something like that? Are you willing to work with, are you willing to have, instead of sitting around in your ass, like you see some of these welfare chicks, and, they're equally derelict boyfriends or husbands, working crap jobs or working under the table. Are you willing to, say, have your grandma and grandpa help take care of the kids while you both get something better? Like, he's getting a trade, you're getting a trade, you're getting ahead. It's going to take you longer because you've already screwed up in the early phase. Like, honestly, I wish women would actually have a rule that say, we're not going to bang guys that don't outright own property. If you don't own your house, you can't get any pussy. Watch how quickly home ownership would be the newest, hippest thing fucking ever. She's like, I don't give a shit what car you drive. I give a shit what fucking, how much real estate you own. Like, you outright own something. If you don't have, like in other countries like India, where they're like, if you don't have some gold, you're broke. You ain't even worth, you just, like, what's that line from, Twilight Sparkle, she sells on the seashore. Look up that song. If you don't have shells, you're just a fucking waste, man. That's the way gold is. And I wish women would take up that mentality when it comes to land. If you don't outright own land, if you don't outright own your house, you're just a fucking waste. That way, people would be debt free before they have children. But no, that's not the way we are. We're just fucking over-evolved, hairless, horny little monkeys. And, nature makes us want to reproduce. So inevitably, you have kids that when you have no plan of how to feed yourself, and that's a lot of poverty in the world. And that's why, honestly, with all the birth control, I really have no sympathy for people, because there are so many options of how to get out of poverty so easily. Like you were already born, and I know America has its problems, and every country has its problems, but you were born in one of the most prosperous eras to ever exist, in one of the best countries to ever exist. I'm not saying we're the best. I'm saying we're up on that list. So if you can't make it here, with people trying to break in to our country regularly, every day, thousands of people, they're coming to America. If you can't make it here, it's probably because you don't know how to mathematically plan. You're a child in the mind. I mean, let's be honest. Most poverty that children are growing up in is because their parents are fucking stupid. Their parents are selfish cocksuckers. So you grew up poor because your parents had a lifestyle, had a bunch of bullshit, had a bunch of things they didn't really need to buy, and that's why you grew up in poverty. But it doesn't have to be that way for the next generation. You could be the change in your own life, and then the reason that your children, like a good example, I'm just going to close it with this because I'm a rambler. Asian gardeners from back in the day. They come over, they're dirt poor, they're Asian gardeners, and their children, they're really kicking their children's ass about education, and their children go to college, and their children end up becoming doctors, lawyers, business, the people, the city council, parents, gardener, children, not gardener. And even if they're not on the higher echelons, by the third generation, these are the people that run your fucking cities. And I don't care whether it's Asian, Jewish, immigrants that know what pain and hunger is like, kick ass because they have that inspiration. As we're Americans, we've never suffered at all. Some of us have been through some fucked up shit, but when you compare that with what you see going on in Africa or some place where there's a fucking warlord in South America, yeah, we've never experienced anything like that. So, moral of the story is, you can do it. You can make it. If you're here, just put your nose to the grindstone, make it happen, retire younger, beat the system. Otherwise, it's just going to beat you. It's Freedom Phil. Y'all have a good day. Take it easy.